So in the unpacking of Kapahaka, you know, I introduced you to a lot of the words that John used in the interview. These are some of the words that our next guest will be using, who I'll introduce very shortly. Te Matatini was also mentioned last week, but I didn't offer you a translation, but this is what it literally means, the many faces. Te Matatini is the big Kapahaka competition. Whakaeke, that's when the big group comes on. Waiata choral, and the whakawātia is the exit. Rangi we used last week. John used it last week and he referred to the tune. But rangi in this week's interview refers to the sky. Means both. Manaki tia, support. So when you're trying to encourage people and strengthen them to, come on, kōrero mai, whakaro mai, kia kaha. You're expressing manaki tia, manaki to that person. Whenua, land, kākahu, clothing. Rohe, region, kuia, female, elder, karaua, male, elder, pakeke is a mature person. Pakeke. Generally, people with perhaps the same coloured hair as me, but certainly the older generation, pakeke, the more mature. Waha, mouth. Iara, often said twice, daily or day after day, meaning, you know, that it continues on. Kata kata. It's lovely. It's laughter. Very common expression. And we love laughing at ourselves, by the way, Māori. We just love it. We don't see it as offensive. The heart's in the right place. The ngākau is always in the right place when we kata about each other and tease each other. And we do it a lot. And it's in a whanaunga, you know, whānau way. Nobody gets offended. It's a little less stringent than certainly non-Māori protocols. So we love to kata about each other, whatever that might be. Hakama, I brought that up last week. Ihi is the thrill or the power. It's just that extra punch in something. It's not just your sort of mainstream, it's got a bit of a punch. Tiaki, to look after. Kupu, of course, words. And tinana is the body, the physical body. Tinana. Taha, you know, taha Māori, mātua, parents, both parents. Mātakitaki, spectators or people who are your audience. Poi poi in this sense is not the poi, the little ball on the end of a string. Poi poi in this word is to nurture. Reanga. Reanga is a generation. Pukana, you heard that one last week, to stare wildly. Kai kōrero. Kai kōrero. Megan was our kai kōrero this morning when she did the mihi. Last week it was Chris. So they're your kai kōrero when they just do the very, very casual mihi, friendly mihi. Tauira, that's us. We're the students, the learners. Piu piu is the thing behind me. Many of you know that. Tupakari is to stand strong. It's in relation to kia kaha. Tupakari. Taonga, you already know that. Treasure, ngākau, heart. Very, very important part of our Vocabulary is ngako. It's an expression about what's on our heart. And because of the nature of kanohi ki te kanohi, face to face, we used to marae style. We used to actually saying it. And you got to speak what's on your heart. And sometimes it's not what people want to hear.
Mhm.
But Māori find it advances us much quicker and with more clarity when we speak about what's on our ngako. And if necessary, we'll do a haka to express it. Haere mai, karanga mai, and there's katorika and mihingare again. Sometimes mihingare is spelt without the G. Both of them are correct, either way. So, unpacking Kapahaka. Kahu Pou, who some of you have met already, well, virtually that is of Ngāti Porou descent. Whāngara mai tāwhiti tāna marae. It is her marae. Her secondary schooling was at Queen Victoria School in Parnell in Auckland, now closed, but remained a member of the St. Stephen's Queen Vic Trust Board right up until recently. She studied at Auckland University and Te Awa Nui a Rangi. Kahu spent many years working in the Post Office Savings and ANZ banks. Kahu served on the vestry of Te Mihara Māori as its treasurer, secretary, and vicar's warden. And we all know what it takes to wear all those hats. And has been in the Auckland Anglican Māori Club since 1967, in the days of Tā Kingi I Haka. She claims to be semi-retired now, with a part-time position in corrections as a lay advocate ko te rangatahi in the youth court in Waitakere. As many people, like some of you, I'm sure, do in retirement, never retire. Kahu and Didi live at Selwyn Village and voluntarily plays a small kaumatua role and has done for the past 5 years. She teaches the Māori language and waiata to a small class of 12 to 15 pakeke. She acts as the village's kai karakia, kai karanga, is the Māori displays person, and is the helpful advisor and guide for all things Māori. She continues to make contributions at Auckland University and is kept quite busy, let's say. Retired? Yeah, right. So let's briefly hear from Kahu as she unpacks her Kapahaka experience.
I've been involved with Kapahaka, well, I guess since I started walking and talking, it's almost, well, I'd like to say 70 odd years, I suppose, yeah. I've been very blessed that growing up, when we lived in Rotorua, my parents used to take my sisters and brothers back to our grandparents' place in Whangara. And they, because we were the eldest mokos, we would sing with them. And every time I do Kapahaka, I always see my grandparents sitting there and looking at us in awe with big smiles, because here were their mokopunas, you know, doing an action song. And we would be, what, 5, 6 years of age. And then my grandfather died in 1960, so I was about 13 then. But all those years, I knew my grandparents were really proud of us, and I always think about and see them sitting on the armchair looking at their lovely morkles, their eldest morkles, you know, singing these songs, in particular doing a waiata ringa. Yeah. My grandfather, in particular, he had a beautiful voice, and in the morning, they had a farm, and we'd wake up, and he'd be singing loud, so we'd hear him, and we didn't have any clocks or any alarms to wake us up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go milking, but we always heard our grandfather singing. And then last thing at night after dinner, 7 o'clock, 7:30, we'd have karakia, and again, you know, my grandparents would be singing a hymn. Yeah, so I've always been involved with Kapahaka.
What are the main disciplines in Kapahaka?
For me, with my tamatatini hat on now, the main disciplines are the whakaeke, the mōteatea, the poe, waiata āringa, the haka, and the whakawātea. So there's 6 items, and those were the items that were judged. And then we had a waiata tira, which was a non-aggregate item.
What was your favourite?
Waiata ringa or the poi. I enjoyed the poi, but I'm not all that good at the poi. But waiata ringa was one of the items, and I also enjoyed the haka. I just thought the men did a wonderful job. And if we look at the haka in the 70s or 60s, you know, we had all these big men who were really wonderful, neat performers. And yet today, we very rarely see a big guy on stage. It's all these slim guys with big muscles, but they still do the job really well. Although I think, I guess it's my Ngāti Parautanga that tells me or says to me that, you know, because I was only very young seeing these big people perform on stage, and that was at the Hui Tōpu within the Anglican diocese, because we were in the Waipu diocese mainly, like the Hui Tōpu was like the Hui Amorangi that you have today. Whereas in my time growing up from, I think the Hui Tōpu started about 1956-ish to, so the Hui Tōpu was when I saw Kapahaka, because now we have, you know, kura tuatahi, there's so much going on stage, whereas when I was growing up, Māori culture for me, I only saw it on stage at the Hui Tōpu. At the Anglican yearly hui, and there we had a junior choir, and then we had the pakeke competition. But for me, these big men, and even the woman, Jacinthia, you know, they just glide along. They were just so beautiful to watch, all my big aunties and uncles. And yet, yeah, I can always see them on stage gliding along, and their pew-pews swaying, and these big men really giving it heaps. And there wasn't a lot of movement, whereas today there's so much movement. People are darting here, darting there, even though choreography today is important for our rangatahi, I think. Whereas when I was growing up, seeing my aunties and uncles and kuia and koro, yeah, they were fantastic to watch, I have to say, yeah.
Give us an insight into a waiata ringa.
Oh, I guess I'll do an Angie one, like no mai, piki mai, that the words go with your actions. I mean, you can't talk about the rangi, the sky, and you're looking down at the whenua. You know, everything is got to, your words have to suit the actions, and as a judge, you're always looking at that, and it is important. That's why it's so important to see the words prior to doing the actions, and that's what Papa Kingi, when we used all his items, you know, he would learn the words first, and then we'd have to say, oh, what does this mean? And he'd tell us what it means. So it meant if we're talking about the rangi, it's there. If we're talking about the whenua, and clapping or karanga mai or haere mai. Yeah, these are the actions. You wouldn't do haere mai out there, or each kupu and the rangi would have to go with the actions, and that's what makes a waiata aringa so wonderful to watch and so beautiful, I guess. Yeah, but also the actions and the kupu need to go with your body movements. It's just not about the actions, even though I did say waiata aringa ringa is hand movements, but it also enhances for any of the items that are performed. It's your whole body, your wairua, atinana speaking, and you just feel within yourself about the words. And we hear John say, think about the words, think about the words. You need to be thinking, people, and he's absolutely right. If we think of the words, we can remember the actions. And that's, and the pew swaying, that helps, and it makes the item, you look more beautiful on stage when your pew is swaying. Your pew talks, and all of your kakahu, it's your whole body. It's just not your hands and your waha and the words coming from you. It's your whole body that helps perform waiata aringa. And when I'm judging, you can see it written on the faces of the woman, or the movements of the poi. You kind of see it, and it just brings joy to my heart to see the smile, when you do the pukana, the ihi, the kata on your face. It just is absolutely beautiful to watch in the waiata aringa. But it's your whole body has to talk, not just your ringa, not just your kupu, to enhance the composers. And to be fair to your composer, you owe him or her that not only the kupu, but the whole of your body speaks and thanks the composer. And that's what's so important also when we're doing when you're involved with kapahaka. Everything talks, your whole body talks. Kapahaka o waiata ringa today, they use props now, and it's wonderful the way, you've got kites flying, or you have masks on, or different clothing on that our kapahaka groups bring on stage. And there's always a message, there's a political message going on, or a couple of years ago, was it cowbells ringing? And every 2 years you see different ways of showing kapahakas, and there's a lot of theatre work going on. There's a lot of dancing musics, gone are the 2 or 4 rows, men and women in front of. There's a lot of movement going on now with waiata ringa, and I think it's really good, although sometimes there's too much movement. And when I was judging, I mentioned that I thought there was too much movement. Sometimes there is, but I think the composers know how much movement to put in, and they wear colourful, someone will come dancing across the stage and waving flags and all of that. And that's good too, because it does show what kapahaka is doing for the group, is doing for rātou e mā takitaki ana. And for the judges, it just, it's just a platform to give out our message, be about, I suppose, next year, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have Te Matatini at Eden Park. I guess there's going to be, the message will be corona, or, how to manaki teki wairua, because it's our bodies and our whānau, and I think the message now is teki whānau, teki whakapapa. and all of that, that's going to be a message that's going to be put out there. So Kapahaka is important because we as Maori people, it's for Māori by Māori. It's just so neat how our composers, what is happening with Kapahaka today about the composition. Yes, and they are in the same reanga as Auntie Ngoi Pewhairangi, Timoti Karatu, and those who have gone before us, and Tāpirana, like I said, he was the father of action song, Princess Tapuia. All of those people, you know, they in their own right earn that. And now today we see the same calibre coming through for our Kapahaka. So where are we going to see this message, Jacinthia? You know, how else are we going to see this message? We don't see, for me anyway, I suppose because I go to Kapahaka all the time, I don't see that message or those messages put out there as much as we do on the Kapahaka platform stage. And we see 50,000 people go to Kapahaka, go to Matatini, 30,000 at Kuratuarua or at ASB for, you know, people just flock to competitions and each rohe when they have their comps. So there's a message going out to us all, and what better way to illustrate our message but by Kapahaka and seeing Kapahaka perform on stage, but sing it, not just singing, but perform, not just performing, but, you know, clothing, instrumental props, colourful props, yeah, and all of that. So there's so much going. You have drums, you know, the Ratana group from Wanganui, they bring on their drums, and yet 20 years ago it was unheard of. We were only allowed 2 string guitars, I think. Now Kapahaka is, and I think Tamatatini is seeing that it is enhancing our items, and it just makes it more out there for everyone and more enjoyable, and it's telling us we can do lots of things with Kapahaka now. We don't just stand in 2 rows and just go up, down, out front, you know. There's all this movement, there's all these props, and for me it's absolutely wonderful for our people, and how it's seen in our everyday lives. People would say, oh, Kapahaka, what's it going to do for you, or te reo Māori? Whereas now a lot of people bring Kapahaka into their lives. So for me, whether you a katorika, mihingare, yep, Kapahaka is important, and it brings a lot into your life that you can share. Ngā mihi nui ki a koe, Jacinthia, anō ngā mihi mahana, ngā mihi aroha ki a koe, nau I tuku te wero, kia hara mai a wau, ki te koro ki au tauira, tino harikoa te ngākau, kei te noho a wau, I roto I tōku kāinga, ki te kōrero kia koe, mō tēnei taonga e pā ana ki te Kapahaka. Mai te wā e paku a wau, ki tēnei wā he te kuia haere me ki, ko tētahi ngā taonga waiho o mātou tipuna, ko te Kapahaka tērā taonga. Ko Ani Tāpiri, tērā ngā kuia ngā kraua ko mene atu ki te pō, mai te hahi mihingare. Nā rātou I poi a wau, I te taha o ku mātua, o ku whānau, kia tūpakari a hau, hei kai kōrero, hei waha kōrero pia, ki tēnei taonga e pāna ki te Kapahaka. Nō reira, he mihi tēnei kia koe, ko ngā kōrero whakamutunga, nā tihi I hō mai, te hine ngaro, te katoa o te tinana. Kapahaka is the well-being for the soul.
well, there's no hiding the delight that we experience, those of us who are involved in Kapahaka anyway. The delight is written all over our faces, as you have seen and witnessed right back from, days of old. So we're very thankful to Kahu for her unpacking her experience, particularly about waiata ringa and poi. And of course, she referred to no mai piki mai. That was the waiata ringa of choice that she spoke about. And that was the one that Kingi Ihaka wrote. We've learnt it in Taha Māori series. No mai piki mai e ngā iwi Nā reo ngā mana tēnara koutou katoa. Beautiful song of welcome. And that's one of her favorites. And I did note that when she talked about big women, big women walking across the stage, which you don't see much of anymore, she used my name immediately afterwards. Big women, Jacinthia. And there was a shot there where you saw the poise all shine. They were, when you use a black light. We went down to Te Papa. Te Papa is down in Wellington. That's a museum there that we gather once a year there for taikura. You've heard about taikura last week. And we turned off all the lights and our poise shined up. And it was great to actually do. So that was all part of props, if you like. What she was talking about, and that whole body talking. So her kōrero is no different to John's last week, and you'll hear a little bit more unpacked next week. All right.